Hey everyone, today we're going to be hardcore and learn some movements that are going to work our core. I know in previous episodes I've talked about how important core is. These moves are going to be more than just doing crunches or sit-ups. We're going to be doing some plank variations. I love those planks. Some flutter kicks and just a plethora of exercises that hopefully will help you be able to move more agilely and be able to stabilize while you're surfing and not get injured. Because let's be realistic, having a strong trunk or core is going to help support your back and support all of the other muscles that come along with it. So the first group of exercises we're going to go through are our plank variations. We worked on high and low plank previously. Now I'm going to add some arm movements and some leg movements into these exercises. So the first one we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come into our high plank and we're going to get ourselves and we're going to get ourselves into position, pulling that belly button into our back, nice flat neck. We're going to engage our arms and engage our thighs into this. So push up into the sky with the backs of your hamstrings. From here, we're going to go ahead and lift our right arm. So shifting that weight onto that left hand, trying to keep the chest straight down to the floor. We're going to lower that right arm, lifting that left arm. Again, we want to keep those arms in line with the shoulders. So switching up, lifting that right arm, lifting that left arm. Notice how I'm not pushing back as I'm doing this movement. I'm keeping my back nice and flat, and I'm going to alternate between the two. Okay? So the next variation of the plank that I have for you is similarly to lifting the arms forward. Now we're going to touch our shoulders. So I'm going to take my left arm, tap my right shoulder, right arm, tap my left shoulder. So we want to be careful about not swaying side to side as I'm doing this. I want to go ahead and stay centered and shift subtly my weight onto that right hand as I lift my left arm and vice versa when I lift my right arm, okay? So again, keeping that core engaged, keeping my back nice and flat, my neck neutral, I'm going to go ahead and move my body weight to that right and left arm. So those are going to be a couple of the plank variations you can do. That's going to, again, start to work some of those shoulder muscles, especially when we're raising the arm forward. It's going to definitely engage your core. The next exercise we're going to do is our Russian twist. So when we go ahead and talk about doing a Russian twist, there's a couple different variations of legs that you can have with this movement. It is going to be a side-to-side rotation of your upper body. We're going to get some cross movement in our abdominals. So what does that look like? From the front, I can either have my legs straight out, or I can have my knees bent. I can have my feet crossed. The knees being slightly bent is going to make this a bit easier. If you want to make it more challenging, you can straighten the legs out. As I do this movement, notice how my back is nice and flat. Whoop. So here, nice and flat back. I'm then going to start my rotations. So I'm doing this without weight. What I want to go ahead and do is bring my hands over, try to touch the ground on my right side. I'm then going to rotate over and touch the ground on my left side. And I'm going to alternate between the two. Now, what's really great about this exercise is nice and slow and controlled is really good. As you get more and more proficient, you can start to add a little bit more speed to it, but we do not want to be doing this. That's going to be really bad for your back. It's going to add a lot of twist. So I want you to be conscious of how quickly you're doing this movement. So if you're going ahead and moving at about a 1 to 2 second time frame, 1, 2, 3. That's going to be about the speed you want to do this exercise. That's going to allow you to make sure your back's nice and safe, and it's going to make you have to work a little bit harder on that core. The other variation is having those knees nice and bent. If you find that this is really difficult, drop those heels to the floor. We want to just make sure we have that nice and flat back. Once you start feeling that you're getting really proficient at this, and if you have a weight, you can add holding a weight to this motion, and then again, try to rotate and touch that floor while using that weight. All of these movements that I'm showing you can be done without weight, but if you wanted to add it, you can always go ahead and add that weight to the movement. Our next movement we're going to work through is called a bear crawl. So this movement may seem pretty easy, but there's a lot of components that go into it, a lot of alignment that goes into it. So as we go into this bear crawl, a couple of things that I want to have happen. Again, as with our plank, as with any of our other movements, I want to have my hands shoulder distance apart. I want to go ahead and make sure that my back is nice and straight and that my neck is straight. I do not want to drop my neck down. I do not want to hyperextend my neck. You could even go ahead and put a broomstick on your back to ensure that you're completely balanced in this movement. So as I come into this motion, I'm going to have that nice and flat back, and I'm going to curl my toes underneath my feet, okay? My knees are going to be in line with my hips. I do not want to have my knees out back here, and I do not want to have my knees super tucked under, okay? So knees are going to be underneath the hips. I'm curling my toes underneath, and from here, I'm going to lift my knees off the ground, holding that nice flat back position, keeping my spine neutral, and engaging my core from here, okay? I'm going to come back down, resting those knees, and then coming back up, again, trying to hold this position. So now we're not only just engaging the core, we're also going to be engaging our legs and our arms as we're holding that motion. So make sure that your knees are in line with your hips, hands are in line with your shoulders, and you have that nice neutral spine as you hold that bear crawl position. We're not going to be moving with that just yet. That's going to take a little bit of time, but just getting that sensation of lifting your knees off the ground and then putting them back down is where I want you at with that positioning. The next motion that we're going to go ahead and do are our flutter kicks. I really like these because they're going to work that lower abdominal region. They're going to work that hip flexor region as well. So with the flutter kicks, you're going to come down onto your back. Whoop. You want to make sure that you do not have the curvature of your spine up off of the ground. You want to pull your belly button into the ground to flatten that spine against it. You can use your hands underneath your butt to help facilitate this if you do not have the core strength to do that just yet. Or you can go ahead and bring your hands back behind your head, keeping your shoulder blades on the ground as you do this, if you find that you have the ability to keep that lower back flat against the ground. So from this position here, I'm going to raise my feet up about 6 inches off of the ground, and I'm going to start to kick my legs as if I was swimming freestyle. And so you're going to go ahead and do this for either a number of reps or for a certain amount of time. The main thing you want to make sure of is that that small of your back stays flush against the floor, okay? We don't want to go ahead and lift our legs up here and start doing the flutter kicks here. We're not going to get that same lower body work that we want with that 6 inches of the flutter kick. And you can either point your toes like so, or keep your feet nice and flat, pushing the heel into that wall across the way from you. So that's going to be our flutter kick. All right, guys, the next exercise we're going to do is what I call a VSIT, okay? Now, there's a different variation of it if we're not quite up to that level of core to be able to do the full motion. So what is a VSIT? You're going to start with your body flat on the ground. We're going to have our hands reaching out to the sky, our feet our hands reaching out to the opposite wall, our feet reaching out to the other wall, and at the same time you are going to try to bring your hands and feet together. Coming back down. Back together, coming back down. Okay? Now, for some of you, this movement is not quite there yet. So what we can go ahead and do to build up to that is hands are going to come up above the head, and we're just going to bring our chest up and try to touch the toes. And then you're going to raise your feet up straight into the air. And you're going to alternate between the two of these to try to help build that movement. Now, you might not be able to bring your full body up to touching your toes. So then we can go even one step further and bringing just our shoulders up off of the ground until you can build that strength to bring your full chest up and over. And then eventually start bringing both together at the same time. So a couple of things you want to make sure of. Try to keep that back fairly flat, that core engaged as you're going through that motion. You want to keep your legs nice and straight. I like to try to point my toes as I'm bringing them up. That's going to allow you to do that V shape and bring the arms and the legs together at the same time. Our next move that we're going to go through is what I call the Starfish. So you're going to, again, come down onto your back. You're going to have your legs splayed out slightly. If you have a mat, they can be on the outside corners of the mat. You're going to lay down. Hands are going to come on the outside corners of your mat, kind of up in a line with your head, just coming out a little bit wider. Okay? You're going to then take your right hand and bring it across to your left foot, and then drop it back down. Then you're going to bring your left hand and bring it across to your right foot and drop it back down. So again, we're working with that cross rotation a little bit. You're wanting to go ahead and keep your head down on the ground if you can, or once you start to lift your head, tuck your chin just so you don't put a lot of pressure on your neck. So again, that right hand to that left foot, feel that core get engaged, try to touch your toes, coming back down, left hand to right leg, core gets engaged. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more difficult, again, we want to make sure that anytime we lift our legs off the ground, that flat of our back stays flat to the ground. So the next stage in this movement would be to lift your legs 6 inches off of the ground, and then hold one leg 6 inches off the ground as you go ahead and touch the opposite hand to that other foot. Now that's going to start to bring your glutes into it. That's going to bring a little bit more core into it and add a little bit of an extra level of difficulty. If we're not there yet, keep those feet, those heels on the ground, and just reach to that opposite leg, trying to touch that foot. So with all of these core movements, what I want you thinking about is where you're breathing into, where you're feeling that exercise in your core, and make sure that you have good technique throughout. Speed in these is not important. Technique is more important. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.